Hello everyone, this is Vinay here from Learn Coding with Vinay again, and this is part 7 of the video series Careers in IT. So, before this video, we have discussed many profiles or streams in IT that one can work for. So, based on your interest, go ahead and check those videos. In this video, we are going to talk about data analyst, data scientist, and DevOps engineer. So, let's move ahead. Sorry. So, data analyst. Now, what is a data analyst? What is the primary task that data analysts do? You know, so data analyst is a person who turns complex data into clear and actionable insights. Now, what is exactly mean by this, right? So let's understand it by day-to-day task of a data analyst, and then we will go step by step from there. So let me move to the next. Now data analyst, primary task of data analysis is to collect data from various sources, be it various databases, various system, files, APIs, or any other data source. Right? Gather information. Second would be data cleaning. Once we have the data, then make sure the data are consistent. Remove inconsistency, remove unnecessary data from it, right? And make sure they are in a good format and in a desired format. Right? Then explanatory data analysis, right? So they use statistical techniques or visualization to understand data patterns and trends. So basically, most of the time in IT world, data are presented in a tabular structure. So rather than just presenting in tabular structure, data analysts present them in a more meaningful with visualization and using graphs and charts and everything. For example, pie chart, bar chart, column chart, line trending chart, right? Because a tabular structure data are very easy to forget, but a data with visuals definitely will make a long impact on a user's mind, and it will be easier to remember as well, right? Next is the report. Now reporting. Now sometimes you also need to generate reports. Those are not visualization. Those are probably some master and detail record kind of thing, right? So there will be summary report, and based on that click, every summary will be expanded and there will be a detailed report, right? So that is also a data analyst do, right? Then work with the team, work with the business team, understand their requirement, what do they need, what do they need, how they want that data to be represented, and based on that create visuals and graphs and everything. So these are the primary tasks of a data analyst, right? Now let's move to the next. This is again the same thing we discussed, task of data analyst on a day-to-day basis, but a graphical representation, right? So let me move to next. Now the next role is data scientist. Now data scientists, they are also they can also work as a data analyst, but they have a slightly higher responsibilities than the data scientist, data sorry analyst, right? So data analysts most of the time work on small data sets, and most of the time they work on historic data. They use this historic data and find out trends, prepare charts, prepare some reports, right? While data scientists will use those data, historic data, they will use that data, and they will use a probably larger set than the data analysts do, right? Or maybe huge data. They'll use that data to train their machine learning models, right? And come up, and that they'll write the algorithms that uses the data and come up with a futuristic analysis, right? So data scientists will predict based on the data then what can happen, why it will happen, and probable ways what can be done to prevent it or enhance it, right? So that's how data scientists work, right? So let's understand why an example of a e-commerce, right? Let's understand it. So we will discuss the differences between data analysis and data science using an e-commerce example, right? So consider that we are working on an e-commerce website, and there are a lot of products, customer orders, and everything is there, right? So what do a data analyst do for an e-commerce site, right? So let's say they'll take out reports of previous few years, data for previous years, that how many customers has enrolled newly, how many customers have placed order, how many customers have not placed order, right? Which is the highest selling product, right? Which is the least selling product. All these things, will be determined based on the historic data, right? So that's what a data analyst will do. And maybe data analyst can represent this in some sort of nice visualization, maybe graphical chart, tabular structure, right? This is what a data analyst will do. Another few things that he that can done is, what should be the product rates for the highest selling products or lowest selling product, right? Reporting, preparing dashboard, that month wise, how much products were sell, how much revenue was made, something like that. So based on historic data, they will prepare a nice presentation, that what how the previous year or how the previous time period was fared for the business, right? Now let's take what a data analyst will do using the same data, right? So as I said, data analyst can pretty much work as a data scientist can pretty much work as a data analyst, but data scientists will have a higher responsibility to offer, right? For example, they can also work on visualization, database mining, understanding data trends, preparing charts. But apart from that, they will use this historic data and build machine learning models. So maybe a larger data sets, right? They will feed in into the machine learning algorithms, and they will come up with a predictive analysis. Now what is this predictive analysis? The examples are, based on the previous data, which product will be sell more in next month or in some festive season, or maybe by end of the year, right? Which customers are actually the customers who can give us maximum revenue, right, based on the previous results, right? Another example if is to, analyze reviews. Say customers has bought the product and they have written reviews and they have given ratings. So ratings is not just the number, I mean, ideally it is a number, but we live in a world of AI, right? So it is not just the text or number information. We also need to understand what was the emotion or what was the mind behind a user when they wrote that review, right? So analyzing user sentimentals based on the inputs and rating they have given, that is something data scientists have to do, right? Fraud detection, right? So for example, there may be a loophole in our e-commerce system, that customer can, use that loophole system and get benefited. Maybe they get more discount, maybe they get more discount coupons, maybe they can even use expired dated coupons, right? So figure out this and let the business owners know that okay, this can happen and this can be prevented in this and this way, right? So there where the data scientist comes into the place. So I hope this will give you a good idea about data analyst and data scientist roles. Right. Now, one thing I want to highlight over here is, these data scientists and data science and data scientists and data analysts. I beg your pardon over here. Uh, these two are now if we talk about India, then these two are now a separate graduation field. So you can choose these two as your either graduation or master program as a major subject, right? So the person who is doing data analyst or data scientist will already be aware of this stuff, right? But I want to make sure that, the other people like who has done just a computer science or just a btech in IT, or maybe have done BCA, MCA, BSc IT, MSc IT, right? They might not be quite aware of these two streams, right? So purpose over here is to make them aware, right? And I would also request, whenever these videos are being watched, if there is a data analyst, data scientist, they want to add it, please feel free to add into the comments. I'll try to, go through it, read it, and enhance the content again, right? Now moving forward, you know If you want to become a data analyst and data scientist, then what tools and technology, what skills you are required to know. So if we talk about programming languages, then Python, R, SQL, Java, Scala, Hadoop is actually a tool. So, and the most popular one current is the Python, right? And based on the language you are choosing, you will have to use certain tools. For example, for Python, you may be using PyCharm. You know, for data analysts, if they are using Power BI, then there will be a Power BI, stuff which is Microsoft product. If they are using Tableau, then there will be a you need to get familiar with the Tableau. And then Hadoop, TensorFlow, PyTorch, right? And for database, SQL, MySQL, Oracle also can be there. Even NoSQL database like MongoDB, Cosmos DB can also be there, right? So these are the tools and technology if you are planning to opt as a data analyst or data scientist. So these are the things you should know. So I hope you have a fair idea about what do a data analyst and what do a data scientist do. Right. So let's move to the next one. So next one is a DevOps engineer. Right. So next career stream is, now DevOps engineer is also a very good option, but I would say this option is not for beginners. Why I am saying this? Because see, DevOps is all about automating your pipeline, basically implementing CI/CD pipeline management. Now, what is CI/CD pipeline? As the full form says, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Now, now this is my personal opinion that if you have seen at least 2 to 3 project life cycle entirely, basically starting from requirement gathering to deploying the application using CI/CD pipeline, then you will be in a better position to choose DevOps as a career, because you will have a better idea, you have used it in your project, right? So, and that will open more gates about and more details about DevOps engineering, right? So I would suggest, as a beginner, I'll my again, this is my personal opinion, don't go for DevOps. But once you build one or two application, you have seen the CI/CD pipeline, then you can definitely go ahead with this, because you have worked as a layman also, for as a developer, let's say, and then you are building the pipeline, right? So as a developer, you will be just using the pipeline. But once you become a DevOps engineer, you are actually the person who will be creating that pipeline, right? Who will be responsible for managing this pipeline. Now, what does that pipeline means? As soon as the code is written, as soon as the code is checked in and pushed to the version repository server, and it will be automatically deployed to the various servers like dev, stage, or production. Now over here, I would highly recommend that do not keep this automatic setting deployment for production. Have a manual switch in between. It should not directly go to the production, because ideally it should go to the cycle that first dev team will test if everything is working and fine, then it will go to stage. In stage, either again the testers or users will test, they'll give the sign off, and then only it goes to the production. So in that case, at least keep a manual switch to move to the production, right? Do not just blindly, as soon as the code is checked in, push it to production. That should not happen, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. Now, another task DevOps will be doing is to build and manage Docker container images. So, if your application is using, either Kubernetes or Docker containers, then they will be also responsible to manage images, Docker images. Right. One more task is the, most of the time there will be one master branch, right, where we will be committing our code, and that master branch will be used to deploy code into the production, right? Now let's say production code is going on, in between there is a need to develop some module which may span 3 to 4 months of time. So rather than using master branch directly, it will be a wise idea to carve out a new branch for 3 to 4 months, that developers and other testers and whoever the team is working, to develop that module, will be working on that branch. And later on, once everything is done, everything is tried and tested and signed off by users, and every document is ready, then we can plan to merge that branch into the master branch. So DevOps engineer task here would be to give a branch that can be used by developer team to work for next 3 to 4 months, or maybe time period can be any, right? And then at the end of the release, work with the dev leads to merge that branch into the master branch. Help dev team to resolve conflicting changes, right? So this is what a DevOps engineer should be responsible for, right? Now if you want to become a DevOps engineer, right, then what do you need to know? Ideally you know need to know any programming, but you should know git commands. You should know how a version repository work, maybe git and github, jenkins, other like bitbucket. I think TFS and VSS are now old, so I will not tell about that. SVN can be another example, right? So you should know how to use it, and the primary fundamentals like checking in the code, getting the latest, generating a pull request, reviewing the pull request, all those things you should get familiar with, right? And obviously you should be aware of Azure, AWS, and GCP also, little bit of it, because most of the time these pipeline are integrated in on the cloud itself rather than a physical server at some company's machine, right? So that's why I have written cloud also over here. So I hope do you have a fair idea now what does a data analyst do, what does data scientist do, and what does a DevOps engineer do. So this will help you deciding in what to choose and what technologies and tool you should be get familiar with. Right? So in the next video we will go over cloud. Now cloud is a very huge, but I'll try to cover possible things over there. So till then, goodbye and thanks for watching this video. See you in the next video.